Hello everyone, it's Fung here. Today we'll be talking about cash reserves and how to build them. And again, the information here is sourced from the book The Truth About Money by Rick Edelman. So why do I need cash reserves, right? So you need reserves because you can have an unforeseen crisis, whether this be your car breaking down, your roof leaking, your house appliances like your washing machine breaks, job loss, or your businesses go broke. There's just so many different emergencies, right, that you're going to need some reserves for. And so how much do I need a reserve? Well, first you need to check your monthly expenses because it's going to depend on your monthly expenses, right? And your reserve amount depends on your monthly expenses and your income stability, those two things. You want to have at least 12 months worth of money and you want to strive for at most 24, okay? And this is all depending. So if you have a least or less stable job, then you're going to have even more, right? So 24 probably. But if you have a very stable job, probably 12 months, right? And your monthly expenses are just the multiplier of how much, right? 12 times monthly expenses is how much you can have in your reserves, right? And then you want to make sure you have enough, but not any more than enough. You don't want to have too much. Why? Well, it's because if your money's sitting in the reserves, your money isn't growing, right? If you put all of your money in reserves, just have enough to keep you alive for 24 months, basically. So what to do with reserves? First is to don't touch them, okay? Do not touch the money unless it's really an emergency or a crisis. You want to put in more money for large expenses, so like house improvements, car purchases, weddings, tuition, holiday shopping, towards the end of the year. And you want to keep your reserves fully funded at all times, okay? For all either 12 or 24 months, however much you have, okay? Make sure they're always fully funded. And then you want to keep them safe and liquid. Safe meaning that they're not going to incur any losses, right? You're not going to somehow magically lose the money because they're not supposed to be a big investment, right? You're not supposed to lose them. And liquid meaning that you can turn it into cash quickly and without penalties. So where do I store my reserves? Well, you can store them at savings accounts, checking accounts, money market funds, US Treasury bills, or short-term bank CDs. Now, these are also known as cash equivalents because they are relatively liquid, but make sure that you either have one of these five, okay, to store your reserves. Because next we're going to talk about where to not store your reserves. And there's a long list. I'm not going to read through all that, but I'll say the common reasons why they are bad is because typically they either take too long to mature. Remember our investments, right? They might take 5 to 10 years or so to mature. And if it's an emergency, you're going to need that money ASAP, right? You're going to need that money right away. And if it's sitting there and you can't take it out because it's maturing, you're screwed, right? There's also tax penalties if you take out investments too early, all kinds of surrender penalties, whether it be interest penalties and whatnot. There's just a lot of penalties to try to get your money back from an investment too early, right, before the maturity date. And sometimes you can even lose money if it's riskier investments. And you guys can pause the video and look, but I have like these little footnotes or the head notes, like the A, B, C, D, E for each one to say why they are bad, okay? So next, we're going to talk about interest rates of the cash equivalents. So of basically everything we just talked about. They are all very similar in low interest rates. That's because they're designed to provide you safety and liquidity, not high returns, right? They're supposed to be relatively safe. And these interest rates, remember that they're always going to follow inflation, okay? They're always going to follow inflation. So if inflation goes up, interest rates are going to go up as well. And also, remember that typically higher interest rates compared to other ones are going to have more inherent risk, basically. There's a good chance it's going to have more risk. So let's talk about banks, right? Most Americans put 100% of their money into cash equivalents, like banks. And they're doing this 100% of their money rather than that 12 to 24 months, right, worth of money that they're supposed to have. You're supposed to only put the amount of reserves into these banks. And banks are not supposed to make you money, okay? It's just to hold your money basically and sit there. And there's 4 reasons to use a bank. It's to store reserves, save for short-term purchases like groceries or something, right? To get a loan and to execute financial transactions, which essentially like get your paychecks and move your money, right? Those transactions. Banks are short-term depositories of cash. So are banks safe? Well, they are safe, but they don't really grow your money, and they're safe to store your money if they're covered by these two different organizations or insurances. Not quite sure what to call them, but the first is the FDIC. I'm pretty sure that's the most popular one. I've definitely heard of that before reading this book. The second one is the NCUA. You can read what those are right there. And essentially, they cover you up to $250,000 across all of your accounts for that bank. So if it ever were to, close down, you still have some money left. But you shouldn't be having more money than that in the bank, right? Because I'm sure that's more than 12 months or 24 months worth. So, recap of everything that we learned. Reserves are for unforeseen crises, right? You want to have at least 12 to 24 months worth of money in reserves, and you don't want any more than that because they are going to just be sitting money, right? You want to keep them safe and fully funded at all times, right? You don't want to have anything lower than that 12 because who knows? This is for your own safety, right? You don't want to damage that. You want to choose a cash equivalent, right? Wisely. We talked about the 5 good ones and like the 9 bad ones. And remember that banks are just short-term depositories of cash, right? They're not somewhere to just hold all of your money, right? And banks are only safe if they're backed by the FDIC or the NCUA because they give you that $250,000 back, right? That's up to $250,000, by the way. So that's it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, do what you will if you want to follow my, financial literacy journey. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.